Hello, today we are going to look at patterns, or they're sometimes called sequences when we're dealing with maths. And a sequence or a pattern is just where we have a group of numbers and there's a rule that connects each number in our list or in our pattern or our sequence. So if we look at these numbers here, we have 2 and then a comma and 5 and then a comma and 8 and then a comma, and we might wonder what is going to happen afterward. So we're asked in question 1, what is the next term? So what does term mean? Well, these are terms. The numbers in our list are called terms. And where the number is in our list are called term numbers. So this would be the first term, so we'd call it term 1. And in maths we often use abbreviations, so we're going to just write capital T for term 1, term 2, term 3. So what would be the next term? Well, it would be term 4. So if we translate this question, we think about our problem solving skills, we translate this question, we're really being asked for term 4, or we could write it in English, term 4. So what would term 4 be? Well, how do I get from 2 to 5 and then 5 to 8? If I start at 2, how do I get to 5? And then how do I use the same rule to get to 8? Well, if I add 3 to 2, I get 5. Add 3 to 2, I get 5. If I add 3 to 5, I get 8. So it seems to me that the rule for this pattern, this sequence, is that I'm going to add 3 to the number in my list, and that's going to give me the next number in my list, the next term. So if I start at 8 and I add 3, I'm going to go 9, 10, 11. So 11 is going to be the next number in my list. And after that, I could add 3, and the next number in my list, next term, or term 5, would be 14, and so on. So these are the first 4 terms in my sequence, or the first 4 numbers in my pattern. And we see the language of mathematics that we're going to be using. So that's what we have so far. That's question 1 done. We now know what the next term is. It's term 4, and we figured out that term 4 is 8 plus 3 is 11. What does it ask us to do next? It asks us to, in question 2, graph the first 4 terms. So we know when we're graphing something, or plotting would be the other word that we might come across for that. We might be asked to plot the next 4 terms as well. What we need to do is come up with our pairs of numbers, our x, y. So I have called this graph our term numbers on the x-axis, and our terms are on the y-axis, and that's the way we are always going to do them. And we need to find our x and y pairs of numbers. So I said that this was term 1, so we might say that this was our 1 for our terms, and our 2 for our terms, and our 3 for our terms, and our 4 for our terms. So can we write that down as pairs of numbers? What would be the first point that we would put on our graph? Well, term 1, so we go to start at the origin and go in the door 1, we go up the stairs 2 on our terms. So we have that there. So what does that look like? That would be 1 on the x and 2 on the y, or the terms, and then the term numbers are our y. That's our x's and our y's. Now can we do that for the other ones? Well, term 2, we have our second term, or term 2, is 5. So that's going to be 2 on our terms. Bring that over a little bit so we're not over our English. 2, 5. Our next term would be 3, 8. 8. and our next term would be 4, 11. And I planned this out ahead of time, but if we were doing this as a question and we didn't know how big our x and y axis would have to be, we would find our points, our x and our y's, and we would list them out and we would say, well, what does our x and our y need to go between? Well, our smallest x is 1 up to our biggest x is 4. Our smallest y is 2 up to our biggest y is 11. So I have made sure that my axes, my x and y, my term numbers and my terms go from 1 up to 4 at least, and from 2 up to 11 at least. So I've put in my first point, my 1, 2, I go start at the origin always and go in the door 1, up the stairs 2, in the door 1, up the stairs 2, in the door 2, up the stairs 5, in the door 2, up the stairs 5, in the door 3, up the stairs 8, in the door 3, up the stairs 8, and in the door 4, up the stairs all the way up to 11. Now what might jump out at us when we've drawn that pattern, when we've drawn our graph, is that all of these points are doing something interesting. They're all sitting on a straight line. And I'm going to draw that straight line in for us now. So now I have drawn in my line in blue, and I also wrote in my coordinates of each of my 4 points. So I now have my graph drawn, and I again have my points all sitting in a nice straight line. So we would call this type of pattern a linear pattern, or sometimes an arithmetic pattern, but we can see that it should be called a linear pattern because all of the points sit on one nice straight line. And that's what we need